Hi everyone, welcome to this week's lesson, which will cover week 11 and 12 on our course outline. The focus of this week's lesson is completing the Writer's Craft Journal reflection paper. At this point, I am assuming that you have completed all of your Writer's Craft Journal reflection entries. So, to begin, I'm curious why you thought I created the Writer's Craft Journal assignment. Please take a moment to answer the question. I created the Writer's Craft Journal assignment because generally, in the big picture, I want students to be able to understand writing in a way that makes sense to them. I want students to make sense of writing so that students feel less like this and more like this. One of the other reasons I created the Writer's Craft Journal assignment is because I wanted students to have a better understanding of the core COMM 1003 assignments in this course. The summary and review, the first person essay, and the Write for Rights letter. This is why, for instance, the week 2 text was an actual summary and review to prepare you to write your own summary and review. And we also, if you recall in class, read an actual first-person essay to prepare you to write your own first-person essay. Second, I created this assignment because I wanted everyone to reflect on their own learning. This is why I asked you to write first in your journal entry about what stood out to you in the text, or what your meaningful takeaway was in terms of how the text was communicated or constructed, or what it communicated, because, as we know, everyone will take away something different from the text. As you might recall, Jhumpa Lahiri says this in her video, quote, "My description of this room will differ from your description of this room, will differ from everybody else's description of this room, because we are limited and graced by our own pair of eyes. The things that we notice in the foreground versus the background, I think is the beauty of creative work." So what stands out to you is going to be different for everyone. And what's meaningful as your meaningful takeaway is going to be different for you. Now, if you did get a chance to watch Jhumpa Lahiri's video, what also may have stood out to you was the fact that sometimes ideas need to gestate for 10 years before they even come into fruition. And this might have changed the way that you think about brainstorming or another aspect of the writing process. Now, this is why I've asked you also to reflect on how the text has changed the way that you think, feel, or act when it comes to writing. Reflection was one of the goals of this assignment because I recognize that many learners want to learn how to improve their writing abilities. After all, the way that we write is often the way that we make our first impressions on others. Whether it's the first text that we send a friend or a cover letter that we send to a potential employer. So I want to encourage you to not simply improve your writing abilities, but more importantly, perhaps to reflect on and take stock of your improvements, to take inventory of your learnings, to notice the changes in the way that you think or the way that you feel or the way that you act when it comes to writing. Now, this process of learning by doing and then reflecting is really at the heart of what we call experiential learning, which Linda H. Lewis and Carol J. Williams define as the following. Quote, "Experiential learning means learning from experience or learning by doing. Experiential education first immerses learners in an experience and then encourages reflection about the experience to develop new skills, new attitudes, or new ways of thinking." Now, the third reason I created this assignment is because I want everyone to have the opportunity, the chance to construct their own understanding of writing. The truth is that writing is a mysterious process that works differently for everyone. Here, Jhumpa Lahiri says it herself.
All writing, all art is just, it's a wild leap off a cliff because there's nothing there's nothing to support you. You're creating something out of nothing, really. No one's telling you to do it. It comes from within. And it's a very mysterious process, at least for me. I still don't understand how I write a story or a book. I don't understand how it happens. I mean, I know it takes time. I know it takes effort. I know it takes lots and lots of drafts and hours, but I still really don't understand the internal mechanism of how it really happens.
Now, I know that many composition teachers and essay writing textbooks will talk about the writing process as a tidy and clean, straightforward linear process like this, from pre-writing to drafting to revising and editing to publishing. But from my experience, writing is a recursive, iterative process. It's a messy process that looks more like this. And sometimes I find you need to get lost in the writing process to find what you're looking for or to arrive at your destination. The Writer's Craft Journal, therefore, is designed to give you the room and the time and the space to think about what you need to do to write different types of texts. Whether that's a research-based persuasive letter advocating for social change, or a first-person essay that people can relate to or that stirs them. So, in summary, this assignment was designed to create an opportunity for you to read texts that were related to course assignments, for you to reflect on your own learning about writing, and for you to start forming your own understanding of writing. Ultimately, the goal of this assignment, as with all of the assignments in this course, is to prepare you for reading and writing in your other college level courses and the workplace, and learn from others how to improve the focus, clarity, and organization of your own writing. So now, the next step is to create your Writer's Craft reflection paper. So let's go over the assignment instructions. As you can see, it says here, use a standard essay structure to create a 400 to 500 word reflection paper that summarizes 3 of your main meaningful takeaways about the writing process and the craft of writing. Think about, what are 3 ways that you have changed the way that you think, feel, or act when it comes to writing? And this can be in terms of the writing process or the craft of writing. In other words, my question is asking you, what is your new knowledge and understanding of the writing process and the craft of writing? When I say standard essay structure, as a reminder, I mean that your essay should have a beginning, middle, and end. In other words, it should have an introduction, body, and conclusion. It's up to you, though, whether you want your body to be 1 long paragraph or 3 mini paragraphs for each meaningful takeaway. As always, use what we have learned in class to organize your ideas. Your introduction is going to be short and brief, but you can start off with an attention grabber or a hook. You can bridge into any necessary background information or context that you think I need, and then introduce your main claim, which will sum up how you have changed the way that you think, feel, or act when it comes to writing, as well as your 3 main meaningful takeaways about the writing process and the craft of writing. When it comes to your body paragraphs, you want to use the meal structure to organize them. If you remember, meal stands for starting off with your main idea. So in your topic sentence, you're going to include the main idea, one of your main meaningful takeaways. And then you're going to provide some examples or evidence to support your main idea. Of course, you want to analyze that evidence because evidence does not speak for itself. And finally, in your concluding sentence, you want to link your example or your evidence and your analysis back to your main idea. And that way you'll have a nice, unified, coherent, on-topic, neatly packaged body paragraph. Now, the evidence that you use to support your main ideas will be examples from your own journal entries, which you will need to cite. Now, You may be wondering, how do I cite 2 or more works by the same author, meaning you, which were produced in the same year? So pause the video here to read this section from the OWL Purdue website. As you're reading this, something that I want you to think about is, how do you cite 2 or more works by the same author in the same year? In other words, how are you going to cite your journal entries? Now that you've taken a chance to read that, write your answer down. What did you learn about how to cite 2 or more works by the same author in the same year? Now lastly, you want to conclude your reflection paper. You can return to your claim, your bridge, and your attention grabber in fresh language, just to summarize everything and to neatly pack it up, tie it up. Any loose ends you're going to want to tie up. Now, you want your reflection paper to be brief, of course. You've only got 500 words. But if you do go over, that's not the end of the world. I would rather that you produce a high quality reflection paper than a low quality reflection paper that is too short. So if you need extra words, go ahead. But you're aiming for high quality reflections. Now lastly, in addition to in-text citations for your journal entries, which are considered blog posts, you will have to create a reference citation for each journal entry. So that's 3 references in total. Now, if you're not sure how to create your reference citations, please refer to this Seneca website that George Brown College Library Learning Commons links to. And finally, to conclude, once you've created your reflection paper, please upload it to Blackboard by the due date at 11:59 p.m. And again, I'm going to be available on Blackboard Collaborate in the last hour of our regular class to take any questions that you have. Thanks so much for listening.